This time on the Adventures of Tarka. We catch some wind for the very first time in our magnificent Spinnaker. We celebrate a very special birthday. And we have a once-in-a-lifetime experience with some very friendly sharks. We have been loitering longer than we expected here in the Sandblast Islands, and with views like these, who can really blame us? We don't actually have any shame when it comes to spending more time in the places that we like. In fact, had we stuck to the plan first drawn up nearly 2 years ago, we'd probably be in Australia by now. And I'm sure that would have been a fun adventure in its own right, but it would have also meant rushing through the places like this one, just in order to arrive in another equally stunning paradise. And we don't think that makes too much sense. So yeah, maybe we've only traveled 2,500 miles in 2 years, but we're happy with this arrangement. And anyway, the Pacific will still be there once we're ready. Speaking of which, our friends aboard the boat Perception are heading across back to Australia this year, but like us, also don't see the rush. And so we are buddy boating as we both explore Sandblast together. In company, we left the Hollandis Cays with only a light breeze to push us along, and so progress was pretty slow. But it was nice to sail with another boat for a change, which also stirred up the racers deep within us just a little bit. Barely making 3 knots with a full Jenny out, we decided that it would be a good opportunity to give our Jenniker a go instead. We've been a little shy about using it again ever since the incident. But I trust that the repairs I made back in Colombia are sound, and these conditions were perfect. So with Nusha ready with the sheet in the cockpit, I went to the bow with the sailbag and rigged up all the necessary lines. Our Jenniker has a giant condom-like sock that makes deploying and retrieving much easier than it would otherwise be. And as I pulled on just one line, the wind caught our Jenniker and it was out in all of its glory. It was a beautiful sight to behold, and it's really a shame we don't get light winds more often. However, Spinnaker sailing is new to both of us, and so we haven't had any practice trimming the darn thing. And frankly, we probably made a lot of rookie mistakes. But hey, that's why we try new things, so that we can learn and be better at it next time. We also took advantage of our buddy boat to have a bit of fun. Don't worry, those bananas were no good. We would never waste our precious food. As we neared the outer reef at our destination, we doused the Jenniker without any trouble, using the giant condom. After all, we like to practice safe sailing. This was the first time we've ever done this, so we were thrilled that it all went as planned. Once on anchor, we began to tackle some of the chores that we've been putting off. Ew. Anushka got the ever-fun job of cleaning the bottom of the dinghy, but at least the water is nice here. Meanwhile, I took apart the carburetor for our outboard to give that a routine cleaning. Frankly, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I filmed the whole process so I could reverse it all and put it all back together correctly when I'm done. But completing chores also means that we get to play afterward, and the playground around the boat here never seems to disappoint. Since we have friends with us now, we also get a healthy dose of social interaction on a daily basis, which is normally quite rare for us. Just last week we celebrated Meg's birthday with a beach-cooked banana cake, and this week we got to celebrate Nusha's 27th birthday with a much tastier brownie cake baked by our wonderful company.
I didn't have a knife, so I'll eat it like this. This is really rich. It's good.
Meg even made this awesome necklace for the occasion.
That's how you're supposed to wear it, on your forehead.
Yeah.
Soon enough, we decided to make the very short hop over to a group of very small islands called Cocos Bandero, a place we have visited once when we first arrived in San Blas, and have been itching to get back to ever since. Shortly after anchoring, a departing catamaran caught a line in its prop and ended up grounded in the sand. Their response from fellow sailors was impressive, and it didn't take long at all to free the boat and move it to safety. I'm just glad I wasn't doing the towing though, because my outboard gave up on me just as soon as I arrived at reception. And I actually had to get a tow back to Tarka from Spanish friends of ours from another boat.
That was a good fix.
Yeah, so I didn't do a very good job with the carburetor, I don't think.
No, I think it's a ruined.
They ran for like 5 minutes.
Okay.
I gotta fix the carburetor tomorrow.
Yeah.
My best guess is I didn't correctly set one of the screws in the carburetor, and so I tore the whole thing apart once again, this time with a diagram at hand.
Oh. Everything looks right to me. Oh, I found the problem.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good.
There's a little hair on the float,
No.
which made it too heavy, and therefore doesn't operate because it's very carefully calibrated in the factory.
I don't think so.
The internet out here for me is like 28 kilobytes a second, if it works at all.
No, poor
For me
thing.
it is.
No internet.
There's no internet. I can't look up my carburetor stuff. What am I supposed to do? What? Okay. That makes sense. This piece is not the same as the piece that's on there. Either the artist screwed up.
Tarka perception.
Want to hand me that radio? I got it.
You can grab it.
Hey.
Hey, how did you go with your outboard?
Well, I took it all apart again and I'm looking at a diagram and I'm pretty sure I had everything in the right place. So now I don't really know what the problem is. You're right, it's either an air issue with the choke or something else more complicated that I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, sweet. Do you guys still keen to do pizza tonight?
The next day, we were surprised that all of our cruising neighbors had disappeared. It's just another example of how everyone we bump into seems to be in a hurry, and a lot of these people are beginning to head towards the Panama Canal to begin their crossings. We don't really get the rush, but are grateful for it, as we now had this entire place to ourselves. We obviously like flying the drone because of the epic shots it provides, but it has also been a useful tool for scoping out snorkel spots. We have already checked out the reefs around the anchorage, as well as this one here that surrounds one of the nearby islands. So, for our next trip, we wanted to do something a bit different. The plan was to take our dinghy to this little spit of sand here, and snorkel our way out along the reef and towards the open breakers. We first picked up Brad and Meg to join us for the trip. The long dinghy ride and the swimming paid off, as the snorkeling was considerably better than near the boats. In our experience, ocean-facing reefs tend to be a lot more interesting than those on the lee shores. And we also have a better chance of seeing bigger predators here in these places, like sharks. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it out to the breakers themselves. The seas were pretty large and the current was way too strong. Today just wasn't the right day for it. Lobsters are out of season right now in San Blas, so we let this one go. But Brad did spare us a snapper for dinner.
Nice hair.
Later that night, we joined our friends to cook up the fish that we had caught.
How to use your gimbal.
To distribute the oil around the pan.
Yeah.
So you can get hot oil. Yeah, there shouldn't be any bones. You can just taste that hint of coconut.
In the anchorage, we've been noticing some dark silhouettes moving under the boats. So what do you do when you see something lurking beneath? Well, obviously you get in and investigate. At first we didn't see much of anything. But then, literally out of the blue, these nurse sharks came right up to us. We were honestly a little spooked. Though they're not known to be aggressive or necessarily dangerous, they're still large fish with sharp teeth. But soon, after a few close encounters, we realized they weren't so much interested in us as they were in an easy meal. We think that cruisers, like us, are catching fish and throwing the gutted remains overboard and straight into the mouths of these guys waiting below. So not only are they mostly indifferent to us, they probably associate our boats with food. And though we really probably shouldn't have, we did feed them a bit of fish that Brad had speared earlier. Regardless, it was an incredible experience, a highlight of the entire voyage, and definitely one that we will surely never forget. After a wonderful week with these islands, mostly to ourselves, we left Perception, for now, to head out into Western Sandblast to pick up our friend Tanya, who we met in Colombia a few months back, and who is making a special trip out just to see us. Well, maybe Sandblast too.
We have to go over to another part of Sandblast to pick up our friend Tanya. And most of Sandblast is protected by reefs from the waves, but not this gap here. Oh, maybe we shouldn't tow the dinghy.
Yeah.
Not in this kind of weather.
There's nothing in it, right?
No. Baby shampoo. 6 knots, 6.7. I think we're averaging more than 6.
How much?
I think around 6 is our average. And progress. It's pretty good too.
What's he doing? I didn't know this guy.
We're excited to see Tanya and show her firsthand why we've had such a hard time leaving this paradise. But we also know that we will soon be leaving for destinations west. But that will have to wait until next time.